24th of March 2007, and we are interviewing Grandmom and Grandpop about their experience during World War II and into their life together till today.
So how did you and Grandma meet?
Well, on August the 5th of 1943, I was inducted into the service. I went into the Army, and they gave us a 21-day furlough. And then while on a 21-day furlough, we were supposed to take care of our affairs, but none of us had any legal things to take care of, anything. We're all nothing but younger teenagers. And a bunch of us teenagers went up to one of the girls' house where Grandma was in there with about 4 or 5 other girls, and we were dancing and everything else. And I started talking to Grandma, and she said that she's going to be bridesmaid that Sunday, which would be August the 15th. And I said, "Where's the wedding?" She said, "In my house." I said, "I'll be there." And so the gang of boys also used to hang around the bakery shop. And then that Sunday, found out that the wedding cake was supposed to be delivered to her house. And I said, "Well, I'll help you, John, to take the cake." So I jumped in a car and went up where I was holding the cake. And when we got there, her house was only a couple blocks away. She was scrubbing the white front steps. And I says, "Here I am with the cake." And that's how we met. But getting back to the day that we met, on our way home from the girls' house, I said to the guys, that I'm going to marry that girl one day, and that was 4 years, 4.5 years, about 4 years after that we got married.
So was it love at first sight for you?
For me it was, but I don't think it was for her.
Was it for you?
She had an open field.
I dated a lot of other
But we've got to be fair to the question, because she was 43. You were only 16 years old. She was only 16 years old, and I was only 18 years old.
Gotcha.
But
I was too young at the time to get serious with anybody, and there was a lot of guys.
You wanted to see more fish in the sea?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't serious with anybody.
You didn't want to be tied down. You wanted to meet people. And, yeah, you were too young
Yeah.
to be.
Although I was working.
Do you want to explain that?
Well, when I was, I went to a commercial school, 2-year business, and
you were working part-time for USF&G then?
Yeah, because they needed a secretary and could take shorthand and everything. So I went to work and worked part-time and went to school and worked part-time, 3 to 5. And worked there part-time, and then I went full-time when I became 16. That was it.
Did you have a job whenever you were in school?
I was working at Glenn Martin at the time, because as soon as I was 16 years old, I went to work. Because self-depression was still going on. Even though things were getting better, I was working at Glenn Martin at the time. I worked there for about a year, making 60 cents an hour, which would be
which was good money at the time.
Good money at the time.
That would be like minimum wage today. Yeah.
Well, no,
more than minimum.
Minimum wage at that time was 40 cents an hour.
So it'd be like you make $8 an hour.
Yeah.
And that's good money, especially for somebody that age.
Yeah. So how did you get into the Army?
Well, I was drafted into the Army right after I was 18 years old, and on my date on August 21st of 43, went to the draft board. We got on a streetcar. We had streetcars in those days, and we went to the 5th Regiment Armory, which was downtown, which is still standing today.
That's where they had the Irish festival.
There they put us on a bus and took us to the railroad station and took us to Camp Lee, Virginia. And there at Camp Lee, Virginia, went through a series of tests for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then they would decide where you were going to go into the infantry or do this, or what schools you're going to go through. They sent me to Miami Beach and to the Air Corps. It wasn't the Air Force at that time, the Air Corps. There I took my 6 weeks of basic training, learning how to march and all that. And then after graduating from basic training, I was given a, I think, 10-day furlough. I came home and I had to go back to, after the 10 days were up, I had to go to Panama City, Florida, which was Tyndall Air Force Base, to take gunnery school, aerial gunnery school. There you learn how to shoot for flying. You shoot at flying, moving targets. Actually, we flew in little Piper Cubs, and we would fly over Apalachicola. That's where the swamps are in Florida. And they had like targets, and we would shoot at those targets and different things. After 6 weeks there, graduated from school there. I was transferred to Westover Air Force Base, which is in Massachusetts. And there I met the other 9 members of my crew, which is 10 members to a crew, and I was assigned a waist gunner, to become a waist gunner. There there for approximately 6 weeks we flew together over targets, bombing missions, simulating bombing missions, and finding targets and different things like that. After finishing school there, we flew over to Scotland, where we landed, and then we had another 10 days of practice to different targets, but this was we're flying over the Atlantic Ocean out of Scotland. Then we were transferred to our home base, our bomber base, which was the 458 Bomb Group, 577th Bomb Squadron. And we were assigned to, and the base was at Horsham St. Fay, which was on the southeast corner of England, which would be closer to Germany. There we were, got there on the 26th of June, and on the 28th of June went on my first mission. I don't remember the name of the city, but we left at 4 o'clock in the morning, came back about 3 in the afternoon. I was so scared I didn't know what was going on. But they said, well, go ahead, go take a rest. It's at 4 o'clock the next morning, they woke us up again, and we were going on another mission, and that was called Aschersleben, and that was right outside of Berlin. It was a Ju-88 factory. A Ju-88 was a Stuka bomber that the Germans were making there. And we bombed that, but then we got hit by flak and by, that's with anti-aircraft, and by fighters, and that's when we started burning, went into a spin. He pulled it out, we were flying, bombing at about 28,000. He pulled it out about 4,000, told us to jump, our plane was burning. And we got jumped, and I was the first one out of the plane because I was right near the waist, and I just jumped right there's a little trap door right there, and landed in halfway in a tree, little tree, and on like right outside of a farmhouse. And the woman come running down, all the people come running up, and said, I don't know if she wanted to cut the parachute or get me down or kill me, one or the other, but she did cut me on the left side. And then the German soldiers came up and grabbed me and threw me in a truck. And then they took off, and then they're picking up one of us, each one, all 10 of us got out alive. How that happened, we don't know. But all 10 of us got out alive. And they took us to an interrogation camp at Frankfurt, Germany. There they interrogated us, wanted to know everything else, but while in training here in the United States, they always told you if you get captured, only give them name, rank, and serial number. And that's all we gave them. That's why all of us know our serial numbers today. While in interrogation, they wanted to know where we were from and everything else. Didn't tell them nothing. Then one of the guys says, you're Polish, aren't you? and you should be fighting for us. And then he took his button and he whacked me across the face and hit me over there. And I didn't say nothing. I didn't fight back either. And we threw me back in a cell. But after about 3 or 4 days of interrogation, they finally took me in. And the interrogators spoke better English than I did. And then they told me what outfit I was in, which I probably didn't even know because I was only there a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the commanding officer and everything else. And they said, by the way, your father was in the Russian Army in 1902. I said, no, he's American. Of course, he's got a citizenship and all. And they said, no, he was over there. So they just left me, you know, because then they put me on a boxcar. It was called 40 and 8. It was built for 40 men or 8 horses. And they put 100 of us in there chained together. And we were on there for 4 days. Very little to eat, just a piece of bread and stuff like that. If you want to go to the bathroom, there was a bucket going around. And that was it. And we stayed in that car for 4 days until we got to Poland, where the camp was, which was about 8 kilometers, which would be about six miles from the railroad station. And then they ran us 6 miles to the camp. And then while in camp, we just sat there, and then things started to get better. It was a fairly new camp. It was only 3 barracks open at that time. And so I was going to go into one of the barracks, and stayed in the barracks. Take a break.
He's ready now.
Just prior to the Germans putting us in the boxcar, the 40 and 8, they put us in a big tent with a lot of Americans, and they gave me a postcard with a little piece of pencil stub that says you can write to whoever you want. So I was sitting there writing. I couldn't understand German, and there was a little guy right next to me, an American. He was from the 15th Air Force. He was shot down over Ploesti. His name was Walter Werniski, W-E-R-N-I-S-K-I. And I says, I don't know how to fill out this card. He says, neither did I, but I was asking questions. Then he showed, I said, well, let me see yours. And I took his card, and just by coincidence, I looked at the address that he was writing to his mother. I forget what his mother's first name is. Her name was Werniski, but he lived at 742 South Linwood Avenue, Baltimore, Maryland, which was 3 blocks away from my house. And then he helped me do that, and I was actually with my radio operator, and him, we were chained up together in the boxcar. After we got together, they put us in the boxcar. And then Bud and I stayed together most of the time in prison camp. We tried to keep one another because we were so close to home. So we were in prison camp for a long time with very little food. The Germans didn't bother us too much, but every once in a while there was a German Air Force flight school right outside of our camp, and those their trainees, they'd fly over camp, and they knew we were all Air Force men. They used to like to show off. And one day one of them cracked up right outside the camp by showing off. He was like diving over, and he lost control and he crashed. And we all started hollering, clapping, and that's when they opened the machine guns up. They didn't hit anybody, but they scared the heck out of us. And they locked us up in the barracks for 2 days then. And another incident, there was like a German soldier, they were expanding the camps. When I first got there, it was only 3 barracks. And then they opened up what they call different compounds. It ended up with 4 different compounds, and this guy was connected electricity from one to another. He was on a pole and he electrocuted himself, and his body was just parallel out like that. We all started hollering, clapping and everything, and they opened the machine guns again on us. But being in the camp, I got there in July. Then in September sometimes, we always used to stand at the gate to see when they bring in new ones, because you keep in mind before, as I told you, there was only 3 barracks open. by the time September rolled around, there were 4 compounds, and they must have had about 8,000 flyers in that camp alone. But standing around that gate walking around, waiting for them to bring in other prisoners, I'm looking and looking, and I see this guy, and he looks familiar. He still had blood on his face and everything else because we didn't have no showers or nothing. And I looked up and I hollered, "Danny!" And he looked around and he howled, "Walter!" And it was Danny Dudek. And we were altar boys together at St. Cosimer's Church. And
He was really glad to see you.
we were glad to see one another, and seeing a new face and everything else. And then they put him in Barrack 6, and I was in Barrack 7 at the time, because we started out with, it was supposed to be 12 men in a room, and then we ended up with 20-something men in a room. It was a room half the size of this.
Thanks.
And we slept on burlap with wood chips inside for like a cushion. And everybody had jiggers and lice and everything else, because we only got 1 shower the whole time we were in there. For the 10 months I was in there, we had 1 shower. I used to wash my pump that they had outside with the latrine that was outside. That's the only running water. There was a pump on each side, and we'd pump and then we'd be washing ourselves like that. But during the month of August, they did allow a Catholic Polish priest to come in. And since I could talk a little bit Polish, I talked to him, said a few prayers and different things. And then he asked me if I wanted a rosary. He took off his rosary, and because I told him I prayed every day to the Blessed Mother because I wanted her to get me through. So he gave me his rosary. It took I don't know if you're Catholic or not, but he took out your rosary. He took his rosary off, which had the wooden cross on it yet, and I still have that rosary till today. I gave that rosary to my mother when she died. I got it back. But anyway, getting back, he stayed in there just for a day. Then we just stayed there, did nothing to do, because we were considered officers. And because we were actually high-ranking officers according to the German army. And we stayed there until the war was progressing against the Germans. They were being pushed back by the Russians. Or they pushed them all out of Russia and started crossing the Polish lines. That's when they decided in February, February, to put us on the forced march. And then February 4th, we started the forced march. The first night we marched out, it was real cold, windy, snow, just like last weekend. Had ice and wind, snow, rain, and we slept on there was like a little island, on the island of Schwanemunda, and we stayed there. Then every day we'd march about 20 or 30 kilometers, and they'd put us in they'd march us to another farm area or something, and put us in barns or slept in a field. And they had, where they would steam the kohlrabies and the potatoes for the cattle to eat, and that's what they would give us to eat. And after about 3-4 months is when I dropped out. And we had a saying, "Dear Lord, you pick them up and we'll put them down." Meaning that you pick up our feet and we'll put them down. Because we kept marching every day like that. And everybody had diarrhea and different, they were real weak. Everybody was getting weak. A lot of them were dying, and they couldn't march. Some of the nasty guards.
That one, that guy that was the guard kept one
picking one, just kept pricking him, with bayonet, because they had their bayonets on their guns. They were fixed with bayonets.
He kept one poking this one guy.
Well, Williams was his name. He had 142 stab marks, just enough to prick him, cut him a little bit. And for the middle of the first week in April or something is when I decided I had enough of it, and that's when I went into the ditch, played dead, went into after they all left, went into the woods, stole a pig, tried to eat the half raw, eat the pig with half raw. Well, then the artillery was flying back and forth, and we're in the middle. And then all of a sudden the British soldiers showed up, and they interrogated us and found out who we were, and they took us back to their camp, fed us, and then called for the Air Force. They told them they had some Air Force men, and they took us to Le Havre, France, and put me in a hospital there. Could give me all the ice cream and milkshakes I wanted to build me up, because I only weighed about 100 pounds then. I dropped from 180 something to 100 pounds. I was all skin and bones. I stayed in the hospital for about 3 or 4 days. Then they took me to what they call Camp Lucky Strike, so to get ready to come back home. And they put me on a hospital ship. Landed in Boston. I think it was while we were on the hospital ship that the treaty was signed, that the Germans unconditionally surrendered. And landed in Boston. We went on a train. It just happened to be on a Sunday. And they were going to take us to Camp Meade to give us uniforms and different things. Of course, we're still in our original clothing. We're all rags and stuff. And the train stopped at Baltimore. And I didn't have no money, nothing like that. And I says, I live in Baltimore. And we stopped at Penn Station on Charles Street. So I got a cab, hoping to, and I asked them to take them to my mother's house. And then I rang the bell, and she answered the doorbell. They just came back from Aberdeen Proving Ground to see my brother Casper, who was just drafted into the Army. And they paid for the cab. And then I was saying my hellos and everything. And then because the train was going to leave again at 6 o'clock, we got there about 3:30. Then the man next door was the only one who had a car, Mr. Charles, and he took me to Penn Station, and she went with us. And then we caught the train to Camp Meade, where I stayed overnight. And they gave us uniforms, and they gave us, I think, $75 for money, and they gave me a 90-day furlough.
Start. They, well, I used to write letters, and his mother used to write letters. I wrote almost every day, but he only got a certain amount of letters, and one letter he got, of all the letters he wrote, he got one letter. And we used to send packages all the time. You got one pack, no packages. I thought you got one package and it was all broken cookies. Do you remember that?
No.
No. Well then.
I remember something about cookies, but they were all crushed up.
Yeah, it was all crushed. And all the packages we sent him, he didn't get any. So I don't know whether the Germans were taking it or whatever, but he didn't get any of the packages.
Well, on that part I'll interrupt, and you people remember the Battle of the Bulge movie?
Mm-hmm.
There was a scene in there that the German tank commander said he was talking to Berlin. They were giving him help because he wasn't going fast enough. And then he says, you people in Berlin don't know what's going on. If the Americans can send a cake to their soldiers and just fly it across, you know they got a lot of airplanes. You're going to have to hurry up and give me more supplies. What I'm trying to say is that they knew that the American people were sending stuff and they were flying it over to the soldiers, you know, instead of a boat. They were getting it 3 or 4 days later. But that's only part of the boxes that I never received.
But they never received them. The Germans were
keeping
the stuff.
them.
They were keeping the stuff. The Germans. So what we were sending, we were really sending it to the Germans because they weren't getting it. The guys weren't getting the stuff. And
so you wrote letters to as well, and
yeah.
he said he didn't receive them.
He never received any letters.
So on the day,
letter he got.
one letter he got. Okay.
And no packages. And we sent a lot of packages.
So once
Cashew nuts. We used to have a cashew nut store on Lexington Street.
as you actually sent him products that were sold.
Oh yeah, I used to send. They used to have little boxes of with cashew nuts, and that was popular then. And we used to send it all the time. He never got any of it.
Wow. So on the day that Grandpa rode in the taxi back home, you had just dropped the
I was
cat.
at the doorway, yeah. I opened the door.
And were you surprised?
Yeah.
Because obviously you didn't know. The last thing you heard was he missing in action telegram.
He got a telegram that he was missing in action.
How long after you got the telegram was this?
Clara told me that it was sometime in August or September. They got a telegram right away that I was missing, but my father didn't believe it because he says he just went overseas. He thought they got mixed up with one of my brother Bernie. But everything in the Air Force is fast. And they got that real quick, but then POW was prisoner of war. I think it was in either late August or early September that my sister said.
But now, where were we?
So you were shocked then when Grandpa was at the door because you didn't expect him to be there.
No.
Because they didn't even know that I was coming home yet. They knew that I think they knew that I was
In the States.
not in the that I was back in France. They knew that, but that I was released from prison. They knew that, but they didn't know that I was on my way home and everything.
It was a terrible thing for his mother. His mother really, she was real heavy. And
I didn't even recognize her. In 1 year, I didn't even recognize. I thought that was my grandmother who died just before I went
she lost so
overseas.
much weight, worrying, because he was missing. And her weight just, she got real skinny. But she was that fat lady. But anyway,
What was it like with all of your brothers going over?
my brothers,
You talking about your mother?
my mother, his mother, I have to say, his mother, she handled herself well. She cried. But my mother, she had 3 sons in the service. And my mother kept it in. But when she let it out, she would get hysterical. And I was young at the time. I used to go to commercial school. I hated to come home because I didn't know how I was going to find my mother. She would go in hysterics. And used to work me up. And, I'd get nervous and upset and get a lot of headaches because I was worried about my mother. And she was worried about her boys. But I wouldn't want to relive those years again. I mean, I know it's nothing compared to what he went through, but my teenage years were terrible.
What I think made your mother that way is that she, one of her lady friends' son got killed, and she couldn't take it. She hung herself in the closet, and I think that helped
make things worse. My mother's lady friend, she hung herself in the closet because her sister.
They got the telegram next day. She hung herself.
That was a terrible thing. And I think it affected my mother too. And like I said, I wouldn't want to have to relive my teenage years over again. Because it was not wanting to come home from school, not knowing what you were going to find. Because my mother, she was kind of, we had like a kitchenette off our kitchen. And it used to get to her so much with her sons in the service, it would affect her. And she would go into this room and put the gas on. She wanted to gas herself. And growing up with that, it was terrible. I mean, everything turned out okay, after the war was over. But during those years, having your mother trying to gas herself every now and then was terrible.
So when Grandpa came back, then you guys, I guess, after writing letters, and you were obviously happy to see him. And you went to a hospital then after you left.
Oh no, I'm not out of the army yet.
Oh, he's not done.
Well, I know that. So I'm saying at that point.
You didn't get the Purple Heart?
Me?
I know you did, but Danny.
But
No,
Danny got it.
but he got it. He didn't get it until 1990 something. He kept trying to get it. They wouldn't give it to him. And then he told me about it. I says, well, I'll write a letter to him.
The good conduct.
And I wrote a letter to the War Department.
You can say it again.
And we all went to the Aberdeen, I know Fort Meade, and they presented it to him.
Yeah,
Okay.
But the purple, the
commander, somebody actually pinned it on him.
the POWs, all the guys went to Aberdeen proving grounds, but we were on vacation at the time, and they pinned them on them,
Okay.
presented them with them. But this is all they just.
Time, all his weight left him, and he got really sick because he had stomach trouble from eating that raw pig. And he was in and out of the hospital constantly. He was at,
I was discharged.
after he was discharged. He was fine when he got out of the service, but then it started to affect him later. And you were at, what was that hospital?
Fort Howard.
He was at Fort Howard. And I would go
3
down
years.
Fort, yeah,
Off and on for 3 years.
off and on. He was sick for 3 years afterwards. And I was going back and forth to the hospital
On
on
the
a
street.
streetcar, transferring. We used to have streetcars, and we'd go all the way down to Fort Howard, and you'd have to transfer streetcars. And how many times did I go a week? I don't remember.
Three or four times a
I
week.
couldn't remember. But anyway, I'd go to the hospital and visit him and his mother too, you know, once in a while we'd go. But I'd go. What
But
else?
we're ahead of ourselves there. Well, after I went to Miami, I stayed down there for a while, and they didn't know what to do with me. They said, "Where do you want to go? You can go any place you want." I says, "Well, how about Newcastle Army Air Force Base?" "You got it." And that's in Wilmington, Delaware. That was the closest Air Force base. I got up there, and the captain says to me, "I don't know what to do with you. Take 3-day pass." I had to get a 3-day pass. I hitchhiked home. It's right there, you know where Newcastle is on Route 4 in Wilmington.
Mm-hmm. Is that where they?
Right on Route 4.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right there.
So I go outside, hitchhike, and they're picking up soldiers there. Bring me to Baltimore. 3 days later, I go up on Orleans Street, hitchhike, go up there, come back. You back again. Take 3 more days. They did that for a good while, and they counted up my points. I had enough points to be discharged. So November, he sent me to Camp Meade, and I was discharged from the Army. November the 5th, 1945. I was 20 years old and a half at that time.
So what'd you do after?
Well, I was in and out of the hospital for 3 years after that.
For the next 3 years, he was in and out of the hospital. 'Cause he was
Well,
sick.
I tried to go back to Glen L. Martin. I worked there 3 days, but what they were doing, everybody was coming back, so too many guys were coming back, and the rule was that they had to hire you. So what they were doing, they was having guys clean the inside of wing tanks. You have to get inside the wing tank and clean it out with all these alcohol and stuff like that. The guys worked there a couple days and quit. So Glen L. Martin was free of you. I worked there for a while.
Couldn't work because he was
Good work,
sick.
and then she got me a job at the bank where she worked. I worked there for a couple of weeks. I couldn't take that. I was doing good, but I was working in the checking department. I was doing good there.
Well, why did you leave there?
Huh?
Do you remember why you left there?
I just couldn't take it no more. I couldn't be sit. I couldn't sit. Like I'm sitting down, I couldn't sit for 2 seconds.
Have ants in your pants?
Yeah, he was always nerves. That's all it was, nerves.
Then I went to the
And
hospital.
colitis, he had trouble. with
I
colitis.
always running to the bathroom. I had diarrhea all the time.
Yeah.
Then I went to the hospital. I was in the hospital at one time for about 2 or 3 months. So I said, figured there's all these veterans here, Veterans Administration. So I said, can I get a job at the Veterans Administration? And they said, well, we'll see. And they sent me downtown. They gave me a job as a file clerk. I think it was $1,300 something a year. So I became a file clerk over there, but everything, bathrooms right there all the time, working inside the building. And I became a file clerk, and I kept getting promoted after while I became and in the meantime I was going to night school for accounting at University of Baltimore. And then I finally got promoted to a grade 5, I think it was, as a fiduciary accounts analyst. I was analyzing accounts of the men that got killed, that the people were getting pensions, make sure they were handling it right and everything else. Worked there for 16 years. I worked off and on with the VA, and then they had a reduction in force, and I was 35 years old then, and I have 3 kids.
Yeah, and at that time he thought he was going to get laid off, and rather than you almost did get laid off,
Yeah.
but you didn't. He left before it was too much tension, not knowing when he was going to get laid off.
And I needed security.
And he needed security, so he went down to the police department, and he took a test, and he got the 2nd highest grade
Oh.
there, and then he joined the police department.
And I ended up there for 33 years.
He had a test mark of 98 point something. That's what his test mark on the police department was. Same mark that Robert had when he took a test.
Did he really?
He got 98 too.
Wow.
And the
That was
rest
the
is
second.
history.
That's good.
They're the guys in that camp.
Thinking and praying.
Well, you don't go, but Grandma goes with me sometimes. We still meet POWs, still meet, while we're dying off, but you can see religion
Yeah.
matters a lot. Just
And
like
when they first got out of the service, they wanted to join form a club, but it never did materialize. But then somehow or another down the road, a club did materialize, the POWs, and we still belong to it.
Okay.
And
Do you guys go to like certain like things?
well, I go every
He goes to
3rd
meetings.
Wednesday of the month. We have it down in Lock River in the hospital.
That'd be really cool to do.
Yeah, it's very nice. Good. I've been to a couple of them have dinners, and that's where I met Danny Dudek.
It's a
and,
good thing because
Yeah. Well, he did. With also when can you put it on to ask me one question about?
I was recording it anyway just to get this stuff.
What organizations I belong to.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Oh, and we can record the medals.
And the medals. Well,
Yeah, we're gonna record that, and that's
I
gonna.
got to read them off of there.
Let's do it. Okay. So. Okay.
Don't talk about the picture. Your picture. How'd you get that picture? How did you get that picture?
He told me to wait.
Well,
No,
go ahead.
he's telling you to do it now.
The hospital was Fort Howard Hospital. A USO troop came through, and in that troop was a artist that did charcoal impressions. And she asked me if I wanted my portrait done. I said, well, sure, you know. And she made that portrait, and I took the paper, put it away, and after about 50 years, my daughter found it, and it was all rolled up, and she straightened it out, and she had it framed, and it's hanging in the living room wall now.
In 1945, Walter D. Czawlytko, as staff sergeant, was released, honorably discharged from the Army Air Corps with the rank of staff sergeant. At the time, he had received multiple medals. He was awarded the Purple Heart, the Air Medal, the World War II Victory Medal, the American Theater Medal, European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Medal with 3 battle stars, and the Good Conduct Medal. He's also a member of multiple organizations, and he has a lifetime membership to of the Veterans of Foreign Wars and the Blind Veteran Association.
DAV, Polish War Veterans, Disabled American Veterans, the Blind Veterans, the Polish American War Veterans, and the ex-prisoners.
Took a picture of that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I got a whole cell full of them. And thank yous and appreciation. Got that in the mail the other day.
That is pretty cool.
But they want money.
They want money, yeah.
Well, we did good. We made less money than we did the year before.
So you get money, get whatever the difference is back.
Well, I mean, I paid like almost 19 grand taxes.
Oh, last
So,
year.
no,
Oh wait, yeah, right. And you got most of that back, but
yeah,
all but got 2/3 of that back.
yeah. Well, it's all gone now.
Wait, yeah, right. Put some music to it. Pretty good.
Come down to it? Huh? Sure.
Any hooks in these?
The bottoms you might.
Gotcha.
Look at all this fish and stuff. You're gonna fish pretty nice. Fishes.
Fishes, that's pretty good.
Hey, fish? Fishes.
Fishes. That's pretty clear.
What?
Fear going into this competition.
We were on vacation at the time, and they pinned them on them,
Okay.
presented them with them. But this is all they just.
Time, all his weight left him, and he got really sick because he had stomach trouble from eating that raw pig. And he was in and out of the hospital constantly. He was
I was discharged.
after he was discharged. He was fine when he got out of the service, but then it started to affect him later. And you were at, what was that hospital?
Fort Howard.
He was at Fort Howard. And I would go
3
down
years.
Fort, yeah,
Off and on for 3 years.
off and on he was sick for 3 years afterwards. And I was going back and forth to the hospital
On
on
the
a
street.
streetcar, transferring, we used to have streetcars, and we'd go all the way down to Fort Howard, and you'd have to transfer streetcars. And how many times did I go a week? I don't remember.
Three or four times a
I
week.
couldn't remember. But anyway, I'd go to the hospital and visit him and his mother too, once in a while we'd go. But I'd go. What else?
But we're ahead of ourselves there. Well, after I went to Miami, I stayed down there for a while, and they didn't know what to do with me. They said, "Where do you want to go? You can go any place you want." I says, "Well, how about Newcastle Army Air Force Base? You got it. And that's in Wilmington, Delaware. That was the closest Air Force base. I got up there and the captain says to me, I don't know what to do with you. Take 3-day pass. I had to get a 3-day pass. I hitchhiked home. It's right there, you know where Newcastle is on Route 4 in Wilmington.
Is that where they?
Right on Route 4.
Yeah, right there.
So I go outside, hitchhike, and they're picking up soldiers in. Bring me to Baltimore. 3 days later, I go up on Orleans Street, hitchhike, go up there, come back. You back again. Take 3 more days. They did that for a good while, and they counted up my points. I had enough points to be discharged. So November, he sent me to camp meeting, and I was discharged from the Army. November the 5th, 1945. I was 20 years old and a half at that time.
So what'd you do after?
Well, I was in and out of the hospital for 3 years after that.
For the next 3 years, he was in and out of the hospital. 'Cause he was
Well,
sick.
I tried to go back to Glen L. Martin. I worked there 3 days, but what they were doing, everybody was coming back, so too many guys were coming back, and the rule was that they had to hire you. So what they were doing, they was having guys clean the inside of wing tanks. You had to get inside a wing tank and clean it out with all these alcohol and stuff like that. The guys worked there a couple days and quit. So Glen L. Martin was free of you. I worked there for a while.
Couldn't work because he was
Good work,
got you
and
sick.
then she got me a job at the bank where she worked. I worked there for a couple of weeks. I couldn't take that. I was doing good, but I was working in the checking department. I was doing good there.
Well, why did you leave there?
Huh?
Do you remember why you left there?
I just couldn't take it no more. I couldn't be sit. I couldn't sit. Like I'm sitting down, I couldn't sit for 2 seconds.
Have ants in your pants?
Yeah, he was always nerves. That's all it was, nerves.
Then I went to the
And
hospital.
colitis, he had trouble.
Come on, I always running to the bathroom. I had diarrhea all the time.
Yeah.
Then I went to hospital. I was in hospital at one time for about 2 or 3 months. So I said, figured there's all these veterans here, Veterans Administration. So I said, can I get a job at the Veterans Administration? And they said, well, we'll see. And they sent me downtown. They gave me a job as a file clerk. I think it was $1,300 something a year. So I became a file clerk over there, but everything, bathrooms right there all the time, working inside the building. And I became a file clerk, and I kept getting promoted. After a while, I became and in the meantime, I was going to night school for accounting at University of Baltimore. And then I finally got promoted to a grade 5, I think it was, as a fiduciary accounts analyst. I was analyzing accounts of the men that got killed, that the people were getting pensions, make sure they were handling it right and everything else. Worked there for 16 years. I worked off and on with the VA, and then they had a reduction in force, and I was 35 years old then, and I had 3 kids.
Yeah, and at that time he thought he was going to get laid off, and rather than you almost did get laid off,
Yeah.
but you didn't. He left before it was too much tension, not knowing when he was going to get laid off.
And I needed security.
And he needed security, so he went down to the police department, and he took a test, and he got the 2nd highest grade
Oh.
there, and then he joined the police department.
And I ended up there for 33 years.
He had a test mark of 98 point something. That's what his test mark on the police department
Wow.
was. Same mark that Broward had when he took a test.
Did he really?
He got 98 too.
Wow.
And the
That was
rest
the
is
second.
history.
That's good.
That's the guys in that camp.
Thinking and praying.
You don't go, but Grandma goes with me sometimes. We still meet POWs, still meet, or while we're dying off, but you can see religion
Yeah.
matters a lot. Just
And
like
we-
what
they, when they first got out of the service, they wanted to join form a club, but it never did materialize. But then somehow or another down the road, a club did materialize, the POWs, and we still belong to it. And
Do you guys go to like certain like things?
Well, I go every
Go to
third
meetings.
Wednesday of the month. We have it down in Lock River in the hospital.
Yeah, it's very nice. Good. I've been to a couple of them have dinners, and that's where I met Danny Dudek.
It's a
and,
good thing because
Yeah. Well, he did. Also, when can you put it on to ask me one question about?
I was recording it anyway just to get this stuff.
What organizations I belong to.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Oh, and we can record the medals.
And the medals. Well,
Yeah, we're gonna record that, and that's
I
gonna.
got to read them off of here.
Let's do it. Okay. So. Okay.
talk about the picture. Your picture. How'd you get that picture? How did you get that picture?
He told me to wait.
No,
Well, go ahead.
he's telling you to do it now.
The hospital was Fort Howard Hospital. A USO troop came through, and in that troop was a artist that did charcoal impressions. And she asked me if I wanted my portrait done. I said, well, sure, you know. And she made that portrait, and I took the paper, put it away, and after about 50 years, my daughter found it, and it was all rolled up, and she straightened it out, and she had it framed, and it's hanging in the living room wall now.
In 1945, Walter Czawlytko, as staff sergeant, was released, honorably discharged from the Army Air Corps with the rank of staff sergeant. At the time, he had received multiple medals. He was awarded the Purple Heart, the Air Medal, the World War II Victory Medal, the American Theater Medal, European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Medal with 3 battle stars, and the Good Conduct Medal. He's also a member of multiple organizations, and he has a lifetime membership to of the Veterans of Foreign Wars and the Blinds Veteran Association.
DAV, Polish War Veterans, Disabled American Veterans, the Blind Veterans, the Polish American War Veterans, and ex-prisoners.
I took a picture of that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I got a whole cell full of them. Thank yous and appreciation.
Yeah.